Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 7 of the Build podcast, and today we'll be looking into how to embed non-standard font families into our websites and web applications. Well, basically they are web fonts, and today we'll be looking into 3 ways of doing so. Number 1 is Google Web Font, which is a free service. Number 2 is Typekit, which is partial, like one website which is free and then it's a paid service. And of course FontPhase, if you have your own font files or have made your own font files by CSS3 FontPhase, we can embed our own fonts. So let's see how to get that. So I have already made a very simple file here with the 3 numbers, and we'll be using the 3 different techniques to kind of get different non-standard fonts onto this web page. But firstly, what are these 3 numbers? Well, basically they are the common wireless standard numbers. So I'm sure we are engulfed with Wi-Fi in our daily use every day, and basically these are the common 3 standards, or rather historically chronological standards that we have been using. The very earliest one was IEEE 802.11a or B. Both of them started around 1999, and then it was IEEE 802.11g, which was about a decade ago, and the current version, the newest Wi-Fi standard, is 802.11n. So there you have it, the 3 numbers. But I just wanted to also find out, like, how do we know what version we are using? And in our Mac Lion machines, if we go right at the top over here, you'll see this Wi-Fi symbol. Now usually when we just click it, it will come down and it will show you which Wi-Fi you're using. But if you kind of click option and then click this, you will immediately see more info, and hey, looks like I'm using the latest standard, which is 802.11n. Alright, that was a brief intro to Wi-Fi. So let's go ahead and style these. The very first way that I'm going to use is called Google Web Fonts. So Google Web Fonts, let me go and Google it, and of course the very first link will be on Google Web Fonts. Now Google Web Fonts are completely free, and they have over 500, wow, that's a lot of fonts, 501 font families completely free for us to use. So let's see, let me choose a font that is very obvious to detect. And of course over here you can also choose what kind of font you want. Let me choose a handwriting one just for fun. Okay, I think I'll choose this one. So when you select the font you want to choose, click Quick Use, and when you come down you'll see there are 3 ways of embedding the font, but I like to do it the first way. So there are very clear instructions as well. Add this code to your website. Alright, so first let me go ahead and actually open it in Sublime Text. Okay, I've already opened it in Sublime Text, and now let me go back here and add this code to your website. So I'm going to just copy this, and where should we put it? We should actually put it right in the head tag. So I'm just going to put in a comment and say Google Web Fonts, and I will just paste it here. Next, integrate the fonts into your CSS with this font family. Okay, so my very first one is, alright, my third one is Google Web Font, and I have an ID for that. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna choose this ID, come to my CSS, and let me just put a Google Web Font and hatch this. Okay, and I'm just gonna copy this font family here, and that's pretty much it. Google Web Fonts. So number 1, you copy the head tag in your HTML, and number 2, you copy the font family name in your CSS file. And once you do that, you come here and you refresh. Alright, my third one is now having a handwriting font called Nothing You Could Do. That's pretty easy. It's running on my local host, and as long as you have internet Wi-Fi connection, you should be able to see all these fonts. Pretty cool. Alright, so let me go to the second method, which is the TypeKit. So TypeKit is an awesome web font service. They have paid, and of course if you want to try it for free, I believe it's only one website that will be available for you. So I'm just going to sign in here. After you register, you just sign in, and yeah, they will ask you to, if this is the first time you're using it, they will actually ask you to create a new kit. So I'm just call it, let me see, build podcast domains. So as they have written here, write the domain name. So I'm just gonna put here build-podcast.com. Now it is also very important to put the localhost domain names, because as developers and designers, we always work in localhost for the development part of it. So let's put the localhost there as well, so that when we add the font, even in our localhost development, we can actually see the font. So I'm gonna continue. Alright, so there you have it. They will, in TypeKit, they will actually give you this 2-line of code. So let me just go and copy it, and where do you paste it? You once again come to the index.html and you paste it right at the top inside the head tag. So TypeKit, and then you paste it. Awesome, so there you have it, TypeKit. Let me just change the tab size to 2. Okay, so TypeKit. But of course the font is not embedded because we haven't chosen yet. So let me continue. Alright, go and find some fonts. Very easy interface and lots of fonts. There are about, let me see how many fonts are there. There are about 200 over fonts. And once again, let me choose a very obvious one. I guess the full library should be even more. Let me see. Wow. 700, over 700 fonts. That's a lot of fonts to choose from. Alright, I will choose this one. Okay, so they are asking me to upgrade, so I will probably choose, let me see. Let me go back to my library, which allows me to use the free fonts. And let me choose this one because it's something obvious if I apply it. So I will say add to kit. And once that happens, they will open up this little window, and they will ask you to put the selector. Obviously this is not the selector I'm going to use, so I will just add delete for cleanliness. And yeah, I do have a selector. It is an ID called TypeKit, so I will just add hatch and TypeKit. I will add it, and CSS, cursive, font face. Okay, great, so I will publish it. Okay, once that happens, let me see, using fonts in CSS. So I will click this, and there you have it. They will actually give you very similar to Google Web Fonts. What exactly is the font family? They'll give you that. So I will probably copy this because it has a fallback font cursive, and I will go back to my CSS. And of course my selector this time is TypeKit, so it's not just H1, but it is an ID called TypeKit. Okay, and let me see what happens when I, right, so make sure you publish it. And once I go back here and I refresh, ooh, I do see a fancy font, a non-standard font over here as well. Now notice this is in my local host, but I can still see a Typekit font because remember I put in as one of the sites as local host. So that's how easy Typekit is, and if you get to the premium account holder, you will have access to 700 over fonts. Okay, so that is Typekit. And lastly, I will go to the third way, which is using CSS3 font face. So what is exactly CSS3 font face? CSS3 font face. Now all these two methods, the Typekit and the Google Web Font, you do not actually have the font file. The Google or Typekit hosts the font file for you, and you are just linking it to them. Now what if you are a font designer, or you bought a font and you have the font file? How do you do it? You do it via CSS3 font face. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this website called the League of Movable Type, and I will download a font file from there. So the League of the Movable Type.com is a very beautiful website. It allows you to download free fonts, and they are all open font license, so you can and also Creative Commons. Yep. So you can also you can basically use it for free with no copyright issues. So let me just choose one of them. How about this another obvious font called Blackout? So I'm going to choose that, and you can also view it in GitHub, and I will download it. So let me click download. Alright, so when you download it, they'll give you a zip folder, and let me open up the zip. What's inside? So inside you will have all the different font files. For example, maybe a bold, a black, or italics. So let me just take one of them. I'll just take this one, the .ttf. Let me just rename it so that it's simpler. And I will use this file to create my font face. So let me just copy this, and I will copy it right onto my desktop inside the Wi-Fi project. Paste item. Okay, so but we are not done, because when we want to use our web font files, we have to make sure that it's working across different devices and browsers. And for this, we will be using another font Squirrel font generator service. Font Squirrel font generator. So what Font Squirrel font generator will do is when you upload your font file, it will give you 4 other types of fonts. For example, OTF, WOFF, EOT, SVG, and so let's do that. And it will also give you the CSS for the font face. So let's see how to do that. So I will add this file. Yes, I am uploading fonts that are legally eligible for web embedding, so make sure that you are uploading font that are either open source or you bought it. So let me download it. And there you have it. Font Squirrel font generator has given us this folder, so I'm gonna unzip it once again, and let me open it. All right, not this, it should be this one. Okay, so once you open it, here you will see the 4 different versions of the font. So I'm gonna copy this and put it right here. Okay, let me just delete this. The very first thing I like to do with the 4 different font files is to just rename them in a very easy manner. So just instead of such a long name, I will just say blackout.eot, blackout.svg, blackout.ttf, and where's the last one? blackout.woff. Alright, so here you have the 4 font files all ready to be embedded. But what about the CSS? For this, the font Squirrel already generates a style.css for you. So let's look inside what is style.css. And there you have it. They actually have the font face here. So let me copy it and I'll go to style.css. CSS3 font face. So in order to use CSS3 font face, the very first thing we have to do is define what is the font, because it is one of the non-standard fonts. And then let's rename it so that it's all easy. Alright, I just want to name my font as Blackout and minus, and I do not want, since I renamed it all, I will kind of remove all of them. Looks good, and I'll just call it just Blackout here as well. Right, simple names. Just make sure that the path of the font file is appropriate, the name is the correct one. Once you are done, you have defined the font, the next thing we have to do is call the font. So we have an ID called font face. So what I'm going to do is font face and font family this. Hey, that's it. And so once again, font face, you have to declare what is the font with the appropriate font files, and then you have to call it. Which selector do you want to apply this font family to? And let me now go back to the browser and refresh it. There you have it. I have all 3 non-standard fonts embedded on a web page. Now the advantage of doing so is obviously because it is vector, it will be so clear. Also, because it is a font family, you can color it any way you want. For example, you go back here and let's say you color it as olive, the font face file, and when you refresh you will find that, hey, it is olive. And of course you can add text shadows and so many other effects to it. So that was it about font families and typography using web fonts on a web page. Next, let's go through the build link of the episode. Now the build link of the episode is the change log, and it is a podcast that talks about open source libraries and plugins and updates from the community. It is a very good podcast. I encourage all of you to listen to it because you'll be hearing about new tools and plugins and libraries from the ever talented and friendly host Win Netherland and Adam Stakiowiak. So do subscribe to this podcast via iTunes. It makes a lovely train journey for me every day via commute. And also follow them on Twitter. Alright, and Win Netherland and Adam Stakiowiak, the very super useful podcast, the change log. This is their Twitter account and the host's Twitter account and website. Right, so do follow the change log podcast in your iTunes and listen to them while you're commuting. You will get chock full of the open source goodies right from here. And lastly, do visit build-podcast.com, where you'll get all the free episodes from buildpodcast.com. You can also subscribe it through iTunes and see the show notes from GitHub or view the videos from Vimeo. Thank you so much for the Build Podcast episode this week on web fonts. See you next week. Goodbye.